Did you know that the Buddha was born rich? Did you know that most enlightened beings um, have financial security beyond what, or had financial security beyond what many of us can imagine? And did you also know that a lack of financial security and a lack of physical freedom, or maybe I should say, um, the presence of constant pain, physical pain, it has been said that those are two of the biggest things that keep us from enlightenment. And so, how is it that if we're spiritual beings and enlightenment, which usually doesn't happen for most of us in like the snap of a finger, some huge um, happening to where, boom, the knowledge of the universe just comes and like we know everything, we have everything, like we're completely whole. That usually doesn't come to many of us. And yeah, there are issues regarding that also. So I feel like, or it is my understanding, it has come to my attention, it has been my observation that enlightening is a process for most of us, and most of us have to go through quite a time of processing to become more aware of our own feelings, where they come from, our own habits, where they come from, all of these things which we're basically attached to, right? And yoga and the Buddha talk about non-attachment. They talk about all pain, all unhappiness comes from attachment. And yet, if you were born poor, if you were born in a world where nothing was really available to you, including love and acceptance, perhaps even most of all, love and acceptance, then it's a hard time to even relax into meditation or how can a person be non-attached when they're fighting for their basic needs? So the thing about Buddha is he was born a prince and everything was available to him. And so his body believed that, his mind believed that, his emotions believed that. And so he wasn't coming from a place of lack or need. And that's why it's much easier if we're physically healthy and financially healthy to then get on the road to enlightenment. The issue with physical health and financial health is that then there's a lot of distraction of like what we want and what do we desire. And so for personally in my own life, I was born very poor, actually. I think I still have yet to meet poorer people in the United States than we grew up, which is kind of interesting. Because if you look at me, you probably would never guess that. Seemingly have everything physically that any human in this world could want, honestly. I was born a white, tall, blonde hair, blue eyed male. I mean, that's like hitting the lottery. And my last name is Dragon. So, what more could a guy ask for? And yet, at the same time, I was born with parents who didn't support me or love me at my base level. My mom actually seems to, perhaps, my mom was so abusive from probably the time I was conceived to herself and before that to herself, obviously, that I probably never felt loved or secure or safe with my mom to the point that I was 6 weeks late coming out of the womb. Like, I just did not want to be born. I think I decided, I actually got in touch with this part of myself yesterday, and it seems the feeling that I get, the space that I was in that spot was I made a mistake by coming here. I made a mistake with the parents that I chose. Let me get the fuck out of here. I was wrong. Let's go back. So I was born with advantages in my mind because most people, like if you look at the Buddha, one of his processes actually was stepping away from his father's desires for him to become a prince, because Buddha, he was born in a very auspicious day, a very auspicious time, and when he was born, it was said that he would either be a great leader to as like a king, or a great leader as in like a spiritualist. And his father wanted him to carry on the kingdom. And so his father actually tried to hide him from the world, hide the world from him, hide all pain from him, because he thought the pain, seeing the pain of the world, would cause him to be a spiritualist. What happened was, as Buddha's eyes were open to his own future pain eventually, because of him asking questions, and he decided, I can't just live in this isolated area. I have to go find something else. There's something more to this. Because what he saw was death. He saw that one day he would get old and die. And it was enough to cause him to leave his wife and his son to go look. So how are we different from that? What is the difference there? Well, if we're coming from a place of need, that it's impossible to not be attached. So the first process is to get out there and start doing all the things that you want to do. uh, Maybe to the point of being like hedonistic. I don't know. That's up to you. Like you get into a conversation with parents a lot of times and they want to save their kids from pain. And I've always had this understanding, just because of looking at myself, that sometimes we know something's going to bring us pain, and yet we have to try it out anyway. Like, we just want to see what it's like. Or at least me, I'm just really fucking curious. And I want to live like kind of all aspects of life, and I always have. And I just, I aim to have experience, I aim to have adventure, and I am being more kind and gentle with myself, and that's the adventure and the action is like in a healthier way now. But in the past, it was kind of just like gathering information and not even necessarily caring if it brought more pain. I just needed to see what was out there. I needed to experience the fullness of life. And what I found through doing that is that there's not a goddamn thing in this world. There's not one thing in this world that can actually bring me peace and happiness and joy. Temporarily, yes. But there's not a relationship in this world that can bring completeness. There's not a car, there's not a home, there's not an amount of money in the bank account. Because I experienced those things to a big enough point to where I understood that I had gained what I originally thought I needed to be happy and more. And that road actually wasn't going to bring true happiness or true joy or true contentment or true peace, which is really what I was looking for. You know, I have said before that I sought out and was born into a Christian family, and that spirituality is what I use to bring me closer to the God or the spirit or the unity of life, right? Until a certain point, until I discovered other things. Like, first, maybe just appreciation for the beauty around me. And understanding that we're all hurting and all want love, and coming to the understanding of we're all broken and we're all searching, and then finding things like something like meditation. Actually, you know, first a few yoga sessions opened me and like opened my eyes to what it could bring, and then into my life came Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, which was deeply spiritual and deeply internal. And then through this book on trauma, I realized I had trauma. I didn't even know I had trauma, not real trauma. I thought it was kind of a joke. And the interesting thing is, I had like a terrible childhood. I didn't even know that until I read a book about like what a terrible childhood was. I was very out of touch with my emotions, with my feelings, with my reality. And yet I did understand that the material was never going to fulfill me. In fact, almost the more that I got, the less that I felt fulfilled. Like, yeah, so briefly, I went in, like, I experienced a lot of different things, and I would go into these things with a full heart, with a full like gusto, with like, if I do something, I'm 100% present, or as present as I'm able to be at the time. And I'm invested and I'm there and I'm uh, absorbing the vibration. I don't experience things halfway. I experience things 100%, or to the 100% that my body is able to, my mind, my emotions. Um, I invest in myself into it. I leave a piece of myself with it, and I take something from everything. It's called the law of transference. We cannot help but gain information as we touch and move through life. So, back to the beginning, on this enlightening path, on this path of gaining awareness, we first have to dive into what the world has to offer. And I still do that to this day. Whatever my heart jumps for, I lean into it. And it's not always what I want necessarily, but I lean into it to see. And then if it doesn't fit me, I just move on. Instead of, I might clamor for it for a minute, or I might strive for it for a minute, but when I realize it's not for me, then I just move on instead of, and maybe there's a loss, right? Maybe I mourn a loss of that thing that my heart was invested in. But I don't see, there's a part of me where my mind would get stuck on things in the past, and like, even today I had not today, but even, in the more present, I just had a tarot reading a few weeks ago, and it's because my heart was like stuck in this, my heart, my mind, whatever, in this loop. It was my mind, it was my thoughts. My thoughts were stuck in this loop. And there was a disconnection between my body, heart, mind, and I wasn't able to necessarily see it clearly, or let it go, or let it pass through me and do its work and observe it. And so I had a tarot reading that helped me find my space, find my center, find my truest self, my truest path. sometimes it's nice to have help, but the truth is that everything is inside of us, and that longing that we have for things, really it should not be ignored. In my opinion, we should seek it fully until we learn from it what we need to learn from it. And once we have played that out to its fullest, and we realize that maybe we get exactly what we want, and maybe we live a materialistic life and it pleases us, and that's all we needed for this lifetime. Or maybe we get enough material and enough of our needs filled, enough of our desires filled, that we realize that all we are doing with that is wanting more. We're wanting more feeling, we're wanting more experience, we're wanting to understand ourselves more. And at a certain point, this realization begins to come that I don't need to go anywhere to get any of that. I can attract all of that into my life from right where I sit. In fact, I don't even need to have the actual material in my life. I can sit here and find all the love, which is really what we're seeking, all the fulfillness, the fulfilledness, all of the fullness of life actually resides right here, right inside of me, in this body, in this experience. All of it resides right here. And we don't need to go anywhere for it anymore. And that is, I don't reside there 100% of the time, but it's where I keep coming back to. It's like the baseline that I keep coming back to in my life. And if you're not there yet, it doesn't matter. Don't, honestly, apparently I'm at a young spot in my life to understand all of these things. And to understand all of these things, I lived through a tremendous amount of pain, a tremendous amount of discomfort, a tremendous amount of sitting with myself. And not everybody was born into life with all the advantages that I was born into. I rejected my parents at 9 years old and realized I was in control of my life. Now, my body and my mind and my emotions were trapped at a 9-year-old level for many years. And in some ways, I'm still 9 years old in some places, but I'm in the realization that I'm 9 years old in some places, and I can observe the 9-year-old in myself and have compassion for him and love for him. And I can fulfill his needs, and I can fulfill the love in his heart that he desires, and I can hold him, and I'm in charge now. I'm in charge of my life now. I think that's all for today. If you would like to help me on my path, one small thing you can do for me is hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, make a comment. Let me know what you think. Thanks for following.